Today's tutorial is a 2017. This is a Buick Regal Turbo Sport, and we're going to do the oil change and reset that annoying oil light. The type of oil we are using, you can see, is the 2 decks. Now there's a 1 decks also. Both of them should work, and we're using 5W30 synthetic, and your oil filter is Napa number 4100290. Alright, now a good spot for your jack if you're not doing this on a lift would be, you can see I'm on the driver's side here, the center of the car here, and you can see where I have my jack. Now, well, first off, we'll point out your filter's right there. Real easy, real accessible. And our bolt is right there that we're going to take out of the pan. Real simple. It's right up front on these cars. Now, the jack, if you go from the filter right over, you're going to see your frame right here. It's a good spot right next to the filter, parallel to it. You're gonna see the frame, and I got a nice support there. So we're gonna take our bolt out of here and slide our oil pan under there, and we're gonna use a 15 millimeter. This is a ratchet wrench here. Let's get under there. And there we go. And our oil's coming out now. Let's get that sucker draining. There we go. Alright, if you don't like oil, wear gloves. And now our oil filter. Pretty tiny one here. Let's put a wrench on there. Well, that was pretty loose. That was really loose. Probably could have just did that by hand. Alright, so we'll unscrew that. We got both of them draining out right now. We're still draining back there. I'm going to go check out the filter that I got and make sure that's indeed the right one really fast. Alright, definitely looks like the right filter. We went with the platinum filter on this. It's a much better filter. I definitely recommend it if you have a turbo one like this car does. And plus, it's a woman driver, so definitely want to put the more heavier duty stuff in there. You know how them women drive. And the car actually calls for 5 quarts, but you never want to cut yourself short, so I ordered an extra quart just to be safe. But when we fill it up, I will give you the final verdict on how many quarts it takes. Alright, well, it's been about 5 minutes, and we're still dripping out of here. And we're going to let that drain more. I see a lot of guys doing oil changes, and once it gets to a slow drip like that, they're like, oh, that's good enough, and they hold it back up and move forward. But you know, me personally, you know, that drip right there, that's getting the bottom of the pan. So if you do have any crud in your pan, this is the time where that's going to come out. So you really want to let that drip out. And not only that, is you're not doing a true oil change. If you let that drip for another 5 minutes, I guarantee you that's going to be almost a half a quart. So by not letting that drain all the way out, you're still going to have a half a quart of contaminated oil in there. And another thing too is you definitely want to wipe this area clean. Okay, I also see a lot of guys, they drop the filter and they just throw the new one back on. But you know, what if there was dirt or sand or anything up here? You're just throwing it back on top, and that's, you're setting yourself up for that to leak. And last but not least, see how I have this sitting on like this? I also saw a lot of guys that they'll have the filter sitting down like that, and on a shop floor, it's pretty dirty in here. And I mean, you probably can't see it on the camera, but just by going like that, there's a lot of grit on my finger. So what happens is that grit is going to get onto this seal here, and as soon as you close that up in there, well, guess what? All that grit is on that seal, and it is going to leak out of there. All right, if it doesn't, well, you know, God bless you. But I see a lot of guys just taking it like that and putting it right up there, and you're just putting a whole bunch of dirt up there on your seal, and I don't know. So I always like to set them down like that before I put it on. So let's see. We're still dripping. So we're going to wait 5 minutes. And I'll wipe that off real fast, and then we'll bolt it back up and continue. So while we're waiting, we'll just take some clean oil, and a lot of people will just put the filter on and fill it up with oil, which is fine. I like to put a little bit in the filter. And then take this clean oil, not the dirty oil, like I also see a lot of guys doing. Take some clean oil. The reason I fill up the oil filter is because it kind of helps pressurize the system when you first start the car up. You don't have to do it, but this car is pretty easy because the filter goes straight up. On cars where the filter's on an angle, typically you'll spill some oil out if you fill it up, and you gotta wait till that burns off, and you're gonna smell oil. But this car was straight up and down. So fill it halfway up. Well, you can fill it all the way up. Just be careful when you're screwing it on, you don't spill it. And it kind of helps the car pressurize itself immediately when you do that first dry start. We got our area all cleaned here. See that? All right, and still dripping. See that? That's what I was proving my point there. If you let that drip for a few minutes, that's a significant amount of oil that you're really not changing. And when you go to a lot of those quick oil change places, I guarantee you, they don't let the car sit there and drip like that. They let that first dump come out where it comes out really heavy. And when it gets to like that, they just bolt it right back up and throw that filter back on and get you out. But that's the part right there that you really want to let that drip. It's called draining the swamp, politically speaking. All right, we're going to go ahead and put our filter back up there. There we go. I like to get it nice and hand tight, and then what I'll do is I'll just do one little crank with the oil filter wrench. Put it on the right way, of course. There we go. Check in over here. It's still dripping, and look, it's constant. We're going on like 15 minutes now. Still dripping. We're going to let that drain more. Alright, so we're down to a small drip right now. It's not steadily pouring out. So I'm going to give that another minute, and then we're going to put that bolt on. Alright, and we're going to put our bolt back on. Now, don't over tighten these, because you definitely don't want to break that off in there, but once you feel it tighten up a little bit, then I used to like to do one more crank. Like that. To fill it up, you want to come here to your cap. It says Dexos 5W30, which is what we have. Now, before you take this off, just make sure you don't have any debris in here. Any rocks, stones, leaves, anything, because what happens is when you take, ours looks pretty good, when you take that off, it will all fall down right into your motor there, and then you're going to have problems. So just take a second, make sure there's nothing in this little chamber here before you take that off. All right, and then again, if you have a really dirty motor, don't set this part down on it because you're going to stick that back in there. Just kind of leave this setting up like that. Or we're going to put it right there on its side. There we go. So we just put in 4 quarts, and remember we did put a little bit in the oil filter. So this is the point where now it calls for 5. Will it take 6? We don't know, but you want to stop at the 4 mark, and that's where you want to check it, because you definitely don't want to overfill it, and then you got to get under there and drain it out again. So just to be safe, stop at your 4 quart mark and just check it, because you may not have gotten all your oil out of the system. So we're going to go ahead and check it. On this car, the dipstick is looking at the top of the motor. That's where we're filling it with oil. Right here is your dipstick. All right. I don't know if you can see that or not, but see your there's 3 dots right there. All right, and obviously the top one is your full mark. So we're still down here a little bit, so it does look like that extra quart is going to put us up there. It took 5 quarts exactly. Now typically what you want to do is start the car, let it run for a few minutes, shut it down, let it sit for a couple of minutes, and then go ahead and recheck it again. Because if you didn't fill up your oil filter, some of that oil had now went down into the filter and through the system, and you want to check it again just to make sure your level is full. So now we're going to go ahead and reset the oil life on it. All right, so this is what we're looking at here. We're going to be using these controls right here. You have your check button, down, up, right, and left. All right, you want to put your key in the ignition and just turn it forward to turn it on. You don't have to start the car. All right, and you can see change oil soon. I just hit the check button to dismiss that. Now we're going to push up or down until we get to our oil life here. All right, there's our oil life. Now what you want to do is you want to push to the right when you're on that screen, and it'll say reset. That's where you want to hit your check button. Yes. And it says, are you sure that you want to reset? And you want to hit your, make sure to hit your right button like that so that it goes to yes, and then hit your check button. And there you go. Voila, that's simple. And that is how you change the oil and reset the light on a 2014 to 2017 Buick Regal. This is a Turbo Sport. All right, please guys, hit subscribe below. I really need to get my subscribers up. And if you could take a second and just give me a like. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below, and I'll see you next time.